everybody. Welcome to the Cricket Hotspot number 17. Interesting fact related to number 17 is the highest number of bowlers used in a single T20. Interesting?
Very interesting, actually. I think it was 17 bowlers being used as almost everyone except the two wicket keepers and one other player not bowling in the match. So, well, who knows? The wicket keepers might have bowled also if one of them was MS Dhoni.
So now we'll talk about certain, and this is a special edition where we'll talk about the review of the year, and in this review we'll cover news that happened while on the watch of ICC, let's say, and then we'll cover some key teams, and also we'll cover players that disappointed us during the year and the players that impressed us. Now let's begin with ICC. The whole year was surrounded with the debate of technology, and there was also a debate of India overpowering the ICC and not allowing technology to be used. Until now, what is your take on technology? We have seen the full-blown version of the review system as well as a semi-blown version. What is your take?
I think, according to the points we've made in the previous few podcasts, it makes sense to either use the entire technology in one package or not use anything at all. Other thing being that a lot of the technology has not been proved to be 100% decisive or conclusive. As we saw in a few places, there is still a little more testing required, let's say with the hotspot technology and stuff like that, where conclusive evidence was missing, let's just say that. So technologies like that, although they're really interesting and could prove really beneficial in the future, I think at this point they might require a little more testing and then probably implementation at the right time.
But I do think that the recent Australia-South Africa series, the one with the 21 for 9, that match was certainly good for technology, and and it showed that if the technology is used in the full-blown version, it's a bonus, and I think it should be applied.
Exactly the point. Like that match was definitely good advertisement for supporters of technology.
Yeah,
and they could definitely come up with a strong argument to implement the use of technology in each and every game. But as we have seen in some of the other matches, let's go back to the India-England series in
the Dravid review system.
The Dravid review,
removal system,
and the Vaseline incident with the hotspot.
Yeah.
So again, there are certain cases where you'd see that it comes up. There is that grey area. There is not really white and black distinction at the moment. So I think once all the bases are covered, it's definitely a boon to have technology in place. Minimizes human error and, well, right people win the game then.
And also, ICC was also in the news as 3 cricketers for the first time ever were jailed because of fixing certain moments of the game. This year will be a landmark year, probably remembered for that the most. It was a good slap in the face for cricketers who do that, and certainly a deterrent. We have covered this in previous podcasts as well, but your take on how such things can be fixed from now on?
It's tough to fix everything. You see, so there's so much going on in the world of cricket. There are so many contacts now with I think the guy Mazhar Majid was also their PR agent for those cricketers. So there's only so many advances you can block or ICC can keep a track of, because if you are a person close to the player, you're not going to raise a flag if you don't have a history of that. So it's very tough to control everything, but it's up to the players to come up and talk about it, to make sure that any advances like these are properly reported and not be like, oh, he was my friend, that's why I did not go and report this because I knew he was a nice person. That does not work. If you're caught in a fix, if you have someone making advance at you regarding any aspect of fixing, then it's up to the players to stand up. According to the anti-corruption rules, they should report everything to ICC and make sure that that player is or that person is either kept under surveillance or brought to justice.
Yeah. And the final thing, that was the rule changes in ODI and ODI and Test cricket. No major controversy caused because of it yet, but I'm sure it's not far behind.
Oh, definitely. I think it was interesting to see the implementation. I think we've seen a lot of ODIs since where the rule changes came into effect, where, let's say, the two new balls were used from different ends.
They haven't changed much, though. Like, they haven't changed the game a lot.
They haven't changed the game a lot at the moment, but we've seen most of the ODIs that have been played since have been on Indian or say subcontinental surfaces, be it India, Sri Lanka, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So when we go to more bowler-friendly surfaces, having two new balls from each end, that might just underline the fact that yes, if you give bowlers some weapons to use, they can exploit it in the right conditions.
I'm pretty sure Sehwag would have used Runner had that rule been not there during his 219 match.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the runner not being there is, again, if you have a legitimate reason, I think that runner rule was good. Let's say a lot of when you're playing in subcontinental conditions, you do get cramps, you do get dehydrated when you're playing in 40 degrees. So it's tough to keep a track of who's faking injuries and who's not. But I think standardized rule for everyone stands good. I think if you have to play at the highest level, you have to prove your fitness, and if you're not fit enough to last 50
if you're not
overs,
100% fit, then it's not the opposition's fault.
Exactly. All right, folks, so now that we've covered the news flashes of the year, let's move on to individual teams. Let's recap how each and every team performed during the year. We'll talk about their high points, their low points, and what issues they're currently facing and what does the future hold for these teams. And then eventually we'll round off with performance, say on a scale of 1 to 10 throughout the year. Let's begin with one of the subcontinental giants. Let's begin with Sri Lanka.
Yes.
High point, definitely reaching the World Cup final.
Oh, yes. It was their highest point of the year, I would say.
So let's talk about the low point of Sri Lankan cricket. I think most of the tournaments that they played, the major teams that they were playing against, they did not do well. They lost against Australia. They lost against Pakistan. They had issues against most of the major teams. So I think that could be attributed to their low points throughout the year.
I would say more than that, the way that they have lost and the way that they have not shown their normal Sri Lankan spirit has been the sort of downer for me. Obviously, this year was marred by the controversy of their main pace bowler not playing Test matches, but regardless of that, their lack of producing a good spinning attack and their lack of not being able to play, that has been the most disappointing part of this Sri Lankan team. Probably they have been the worst Sri Lankan team in the last 5 to 6 years, because what you can count on Sri Lanka is to play spin, and if you cannot play Nathan Lyon, I don't think you can play, say, a like of Ashwin. I would say Ashwin is a more experienced bowler than Lyon, so that's just my take on it.
I think if you have to pinpoint the issues, it would definitely come down to the leadership in the team. I think you have quality senior players like Sangakkara, Jayawardene and Dilshan in the team. But again, the younger players coming in are not replicating or not filling in the shoes of these giants. It's not going to be easy, but in any case, there's over-reliance on these seniors. And if they fail, team is done.
Yes, there has been an over-reliance, and I think it was only if somebody was to predict that, they would have been right, because you cannot win for a long period of time if you rely only 3 players. Especially if you have one of those 3 players is like a Sehwag. Like, you cannot rely on Sehwag. He will give you a performance to win you a match, but it won't be 100% of the time. So that's what Dilshan sort of provides for them. Sangakkara and Mahela Jayawardene, they would be sort of feeling bad about themselves only because they didn't have a stellar year. Although Sangakkara got the ODI Player of the Year award, but he won't be happy with his performance, and given their downfall, it sort of exacerbated their bad patch.
I think talking about future potential, their best bet right now is Angelo Matthews.
Yes, I would
think.
have to agree with you there.
I see a very stable head on his shoulders, a very good batsman,
Good fielder.
good fielder, good all-round cricketer with a good cricketing brain. So, future leadership potential in him. I think would be the next young captain that Sri Lanka chooses to go for, and I think he could bring the team together.
Yeah, he could. Let's move on to
And before we do that,
Oh,
I
yes.
think if you have to give on a scale of 1 to 10, if you want to rate the Sri Lankan cricket year, the Canada year that they had, more or less
disappointing.
disappointing.
5.5ish.
5.5. I
Yeah.
think that's a fair assessment of the year. They could have done much better, but they failed to achieve that.
Yes. Next team is New Zealand, which ended their year with the best present they could have had. Win in Australia after 26 years against Australia. Doug Bracewell there was their man of the match. So certainly a very positive
deservedly
sign.
man of the match, but
Deservedly man of the match.
went
but,
to David Warner.
Yes, went to David Warner.
It's definitely the high point, ending the year against Australia, winning a test match after 26 years. Amazing part.
Yeah.
Great presence of all the players. I think
Low has generally been the lack of good performances from their senior players. It would have to be a problem. This has been the case from the last couple of years, actually. Only Daniel Vittori is the senior player that has performed very well.
That's
This is also one of their issues that they have to correct. They have to make sure that Brendan McCullum, Jesse Ryder, Ross Taylor make their presence felt, and the potential is the young talent. We saw actually Brownlee play make 350s in a row. And we saw Doug Bracewell taking a lot of wickets in Australia. And so great talent coming through, but I think it's just a matter of streamlining.
Oh, definitely. You hit the nail on the head. I think when you're talking about the issues, it's the top players not performing. But talking about their future potential, they do have a lot of good young players coming in, and hoping that they consistently perform over the coming matches and make sure that they justify their selection.
Yeah.
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think they were more around 6 or 10.
Yes.
Although they didn't play much cricket on the year, but
Yeah.
they rounded off the year with a good win over Australia, and I think 6 on 10 is a fair assessment.
And I think it's an upcoming team, which is also a positive going for them.
That's always the case with New Zealand, though. You've always grouped under that
Yes.
upcoming team
Yes.
category. Any case, moving on, I think the next team we'll talk about is South Africa. High point was definitely, I think, their batting in the India series, which was played late last year and early this year.
Yeah.
Great performances by
It
Callis.
shows the lack of cricket played in South Africa.
Absolutely. Callis, Amla, AB, each and every player performed brilliantly during that series. Callis especially had an amazing series, scored 2 double centuries, and was just a treat to watch.
Yeah, he was like, if he was to say that ever in his life he was in a patch where he could do nothing wrong, it was that series, that 2-test series. Let's move on to their lows, which were
I think
major, and they have continued for the last 15-20 years since their readmission to international cricket. Let's say the C word, joke. Not surprising, because I was expecting that word to come up for them. And the way Hashim Amla got out in that match, I still remember it hit the boot of Nathan McCullum and it went to slip. I think that kind of luck sums up the Australian, the Proteas' luck overall in ICC tournaments.
I think that's definitely the low point. Being one of the favorites, actually, apart from India and Pakistan.
Let's just say if there were two best teams to have played that final, it was South Africa and India.
They were definitely the favorites going in, and not making it even to the semi-finals is definitely the low point of their year. They haven't played much cricket mind you. Again, the issue of choking came up during that tournament, and I think they have to work hard.
It will forever
It's
come
more
up.
of a mental issue, I think. They don't even see it as an issue, but the media has tagged them as chokers, which is tough to get rid of.
Well, I heard an interview. Steve Waugh said it once, very, very, without even thinking that. And I think the media has taken that word so much. And I think it's the best sledge word in cricket, because it's not a swear word, but it's the best word to create a fight. And we saw that in that match itself, where actually Kyle Mills had a fight with Francois Duplessis, was it? So it was certainly a very good sledge. Potential.
They have great potential. I think their batting lineup is set.
And I think we always say that about South Africa.
Always, I mean, some way or the other, they just fail to replicate that into results. They have all the potential they need. Batting lineup could walk into any of the Test 11 present day.
And anyone will take them. They
Exactly.
are so good.
If you talk about even Smith on his day is great. It's the amount of experience he brings at the top of the order. Great player. I think he just needs one or two more good knocks under his belt to make sure that he's back to his best.
Marks.
I think 6.5. How would you?
6.5 is fair.
6.5 on
I would
10.
say.
They could have done better had they performed better in the World Cup. They would have
They could
pushed
have done
7.
a lot. They could have done. I reached 8 if they had reached the final, because that was their test, and
That
they
was
failed.
absolutely the
And
test.
since they didn't play a lot of cricket, we can only judge it because of that performance.
Let's move on to the next team. That is the land down under, Australia.
Yep.
High point, I would say, it's an odd one for me, but I'd say it's their victory in Sri Lanka. That's what I would put it as their high point, because
Yes.
they went in with a young team, with a spinner.
New captain.
and
Untested captain.
exactly, and they did really well under the new unit. They gelled well. The captain came out and performed from the front. They looked great under Clark. They got a spinner who is, let's say, a stable position in the Australian team now, unlike the past few years where they've tried 10 or 15 different varieties.
And he was the most unlikeliest to do, because everybody had counted him off before he played the match. Generally, groundsmen don't make great spinners, what they said in the media. But certainly he's been a stable influence, and I think that portion was always lacking in Australian cricket. He's not what you call a splendid spinner, but he's certainly a Daniel Vittori type.
Gets the job done.
Who'll actually keep working at it. He'll bowl those 30 overs in a day and give you 2 or 3 wickets, but will keep the runs down. And one thing that I like about Clark's captaincy, I've said that before, he's put attacking fields for him, and he's taken wickets because of his attacking fields. And I think that's what a captain should do. Should actually give faith to a spinner.
Their low point, again, I think would go back to...
Low point would be the Ahmedabad quarterfinal. India,
yeah.
Yuvraj Singh especially showed his colours, and Australia did not qualify. Low point for Australia and the career of Ricky Ponting, I would say.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even though he made 100 in that match. The marks for Australia. I think if you remove the fact that they made a 98 and a 43 all out, this year was not a bad year for them, because the past years they were sliding, and I think they have sort of stopped that slide slightly with the coming of Warner and their young bowling attack. They have certainly bumped that mark slightly up, but if you take out the last 2 months, their mark would be considerably lower. But this last 2 months has really made sure that they have something to bank on for the future. I would give them a 7.5, maybe slightly higher in many people's opinion, having seen that they lost 3-1 in the Ashes, and all the 3 were an innings defeat. But the way that they have ended, the way that they have shown the potential with Pat Cummins and Pattinson, certainly I would say that they are one for the future.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next mercurial team, Pakistan.
I think the world is about to end, because Australia, which was known to be this sort of temple of stability, has gone down to a country which loses which makes 44 and 92 in a year, and a team like Pakistan has had the most stable run that I've ever seen them have.
In a long time for Pakistan cricket, actually, they haven't been as stable.
And in midst of chaos.
So I think, talking about the high points, I think it's the stability in their management, which, in spite of all the off-field issues, if you talk about the trial, you talk about so many other things, Afridi retiring, coming back, in the midst of it all, they have sort of maintained stability on the field, which is really commendable for Pakistan.
I think that is very commendable, and also the fact that they have made sure that they are winning. Being stable is one thing, but I think they probably would have the highest percentage of wins. I mean, that's not the best way to represent them, because they won against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe this year, but it is certainly a very important year for them. I mean, they can actually build off this year. As this case with Australia, they found a certain group of players this year which they can build their team on, and I think a good year for them.
Definitely.
Very good year for them.
Yeah,
I think if you have things like Amir, who was a great talent, having lost it, given that fact, they found Junaid Khan, they found Azaz Chima. A very good year.
Their low point definitely was the trial. Three of their leading players, Salman Butt, the captain, Mohammad Amir, a great young talent, Mohammad Asif, a very good bowler, losing all three, embarrassing the entire nation with their act. Definitely the low point in their cricketing year.
Yes, I would say so. That's probably the lowest point. And if you ask the Pakistani fan, according to them, the lowest point would be losing to India in the semi-final. But certainly a low point. The lowest point ever for a cricketing nation is a nation going through trials and tribulations.
I think, and if you want to talk about their issues, there'd definitely be the what do you call the miscommunication or sort of the mishandling by the management of the Pakistan Cricket Board of its players. So again, reshuffling of the board, appointing new people, that's lent another aspect of stability to their cricket at this point of time. We never know how it'll look when we get up tomorrow, but at this point of time, they're looking at least more stable from the management side too, which is great. So I think if you had to round off on a scale of 10, I think Pakistan definitely had an 8 a year.
Yes, very good. A very unexpected 8, but I think a very good year for them.
Definitely. Let's talk about England now. Very good year on the whole for them. They did really well, at least on the test front. ODIs, they've still left wanting more. But when you talk about tests, their Ashes victory, the India series.
The India series 4-0. And these are some stellar numbers, which I think...
against very good test sides.
And, well, the bests. And I think reaching number 1 is...
the high point.
Absolutely. I think the high point. And I think this, if Pakistan's stability is a sign of world being ended, this is another sign, because England, having invented this game, had never reached the number 1 spot in the last 20 years, and having achieved that this year, their fans are really happy. But I'm one of their low points would be the World Cup loss, and generally the lack of England producing good ODI teams.
I think half of the ODI team is surviving on the Kolpak players. It's mainly people coming from the Kolpak route, or people like Morgan who come from other countries. So the local brewed talent is not that much when it comes to the ODI team. So definitely that's one of the issues that they have.
Cook's captaincy?
It's been good. I don't think it's been outstanding. The good part, I've mentioned this before, I love when a captain leads the team from the front. That's been the best part about his captaincy. He's not let the captaincy affect his game. In fact, it's only enhanced. Same case with Michael Clark.
Yeah.
Which is what I love. If you're a captain, you have to show the team how to play, how to lead from the front. Difficult situation, lift the team out of it. you only earn more respect in the eyes of your team members, and you can show them the way.
I think the 5-0 loss against India would be a reminder for them, and I think it will and it would have taught their young boys a lesson how to play in the subcontinental conditions.
Definitely, and I think that's one of the issues they with, if you talk about their potential and their issues, they have a great test side, but they have the potential to be there at number one position for a long time. On the other hand, they have to make sure that they climb up in the ODI charts also, just to have a more balanced side, both tests and one days. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the performance?
Having reached number one in the test rankings, it's certainly a very special year for them. 8.5.
8.5, definitely.
Had they done well on the World Cup, had they done well in the ODIs, they would have gotten a 9 or a 9.5 even. But I think...
Yeah, exactly. But I think their achievements on the test scale are cover up for the ODI lapses, and I think 8.5 is a well-deserved number.
Yeah.
Last but not the least, let's talk about India.
Yeah.
The most obvious high point.
Well, the most obvious high point would be the World Cup final.
Obviously.
Winning the World Cup final. And the biggest thing that I think the positive India will take from this year especially, and what an Indian fan will take from this year, is the reliance on youth. The youth haven't let us down in numerous matches. We have won ODI matches and even test matches because of youth's ability to hold pressure, and I think we have to attribute that to IPL, which has taught them to play on a big stage.
I think this is the first time I'm talking you. Listening to you talking positive things about the IPL.
Yes, I mean there are positives and negatives. But let's not go over that again. but I think the likes of Kohli, Raina would say this was not a good year for him, but Ashwin certainly,
and the young pace bowlers.
But I would say this was the year for Kohli. I've seen him grow this year a lot.
Absolutely.
And the likes of Rohit Sharma performing well at the back end of the year certainly gives me hope that when the likes of Dravid and Tendulkar retire, which I won't be surprised it would be in the next calendar year, we have something to fall back on, and I think the Indian viewers would not, the cricket rating in India would not fall if the likes of Dravid and Tendulkar retire.
I think very well put. That was definitely the main reasons why India survived and prospered during the year, was because the youth came in and the younger players made sure that India does not lose its way if the older players are not pulling their weight.
Yeah.
Low point, one and only. Talking about the England series, very disappointing. It was touted to be one of the great series of recent times.
It was a marquee series.
Firecracker of a series. A lot of expectations from the series going into it, but was a damn squid as far as India was concerned.
Yep, certainly, and I think we don't want to recall all the embarrassing moments, but I think even in that series we got a Praveen Kumar. Even in that series, we got people who can step up to the plate. In the ODIs, we got the Ravindra Jadejas and Parthiv Patels. And in that series, one of the best things that I've ever seen is Rahul Dravid hit 3 sixes in the T20. I can still never forget that.
That's true. That's a sight to behold.
Yeah.
I think talking about current issues, and I think for India, it's current issues and future potential is sort of one and the same thing. It's definitely the bowling attack. A lot of people would see that as an issue, that they don't have an experienced bowling attack.
I think more than the bowling attack has skills, but I think the lack of management of the bowlers is a big problem in India, because generally if there's a fast bowler or even if it's a spin bowler, bowlers get injured very quickly, and you need special player managers who can actually manage their injuries, remain honest to BCCI on actually selection of the players, whether they are available or not, and don't leave fans hanging that okay, Zahir Khan will play, he actually gets out after 1.5 hours of the most important series of his career. And I think this was very disappointing. There has been a lot written on this issue of player management, and that probably would be the worst part of the year for me.
Definitely, I think talking about future potential from the bowling front, great debut by Ashwin, by Umesh Yadav, Varun Aaron. Everyone has come in and showed that they can perform at the highest level. Which is good. And for the pace bowlers, it's really heartening to see them come in and bowl fast. You don't really associate that side with Indian cricket. So it's definitely been a good year on that front, that we found someone for the future. If you talk about, say, if you had to give marks to India on a scale of 1 to 10 without being biased.
Generally without being biased, I would say that this is a very positive year. If you take out India's struggles against England, it would be a much higher score. But I think a modest score, according to me, is an 8.5, because splendid year all across except those 2 months.
Absolutely. I agree with you. They have definitely been one of the teams to beat as far as ODIs are concerned. Test matches, they did really well. Went to South Africa. They tied the series.
Having lost very badly in the first
test. So, very good comeback there too. And they have done well, except those 2 months in England.
And I would say the last couple of months has taught India how to not be over-reliant on Zaheer Khan. Obviously, Australia will be a test for these young guns. But still a good year. I would say good year.
Absolutely.
Let's move on. This segment will talk about the players that didn't impress this year. The top of my list would be Ricky Ponting, having not scored 100 in this calendar year. Certainly a very new thing, a very good player. But I think if I before this year started, I said that this year will define Ponting's cricketing career, and because Ashes was going on at the start, the World Cup, and those two events basically will form his legacy. He's still in the team. He has lost the captaincy, but certainly a very disappointing year on actually his end.
Definitely. I think at one point of time he was within striking distance of Tendulkar's record of centuries in test matches, but seeing how this year has gone by, he's been left far behind, and Tendulkar has gone from strength to strength, and he's had a good year on the whole. But Ponting, on the other hand, the other giant of the game of modern cricket, he hasn't lived up to his expectations or the past image of himself, I think. And
I'm afraid that his year may sort of harmonize his image in the eyes of a fan. This is not what Ponting is, and he expected to do well after giving up the captaincy. He hasn't. He has made some good 50s, but I think he will be looking to India to make 100 against them. Otherwise, I predict that India series
is going to be his
last series.
Absolutely. That's what I think one's moving towards. And if he has a couple of good scores, I think that would be the right time to retire and go off on a high rather than being pushed out of the team.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other underperformers throughout the year.
One name I would like to bring, which deals with Ponting, is Gautam Gambhir, another player who hasn't had 100 this year. Very, very surprise selection to some, but I think being injury prone and for a good part of the year hasn't performed very well in the time that he wasn't.
Exactly. Again, you can attribute to that stop-start year for him. Injuries, and comes back and he gets injured again. Then
club versus country debate he was a part of. Yeah.
So it's tough to put a finger on where he's going wrong, but again, he needs a big score. But as long as he continues to be at the crease supporting Sehwag when Sehwag is going crazy, I think he more than does his job.
Yeah, and one thing that I think Gambhir has on him is age. Ponting does not have age on his side, so certainly a bad patch, which I'm sure he will come through. Another two players that had a bad year, Mitchell Johnson and Harbhajan. A word that will describe both of them is flat. Flat bowling. Both are kicked out of the team, shall we say, and a bad year for both of them.
Absolutely, I think the lowest point in his career for Harbhajan Singh. Mitchell Johnson, again, similar thing. Harbhajan not even able to replicate his magic at the domestic level. He was asked to go back, prove his fitness, take wickets in the domestic matches, but he hasn't been able to do that. He's been looking significantly off colour, even in the domestic circuit. He's not a threat anymore. And Mitchell Johnson, again, was...
Do you feel that he was suffering through an injury? And I think BCCI was allowing him to play because as soon as he went, he played three or four domestic matches, and then he said he's injured, and sort of unsurprisingly or surprisingly, it was after the Australian squad was selected, and immediately the week after he said he's injured. Is it because he wanted to be a part of the team and BCCI did not reveal it?
It could be the case. It's tough to speculate at this point with whatever limited information that we have, but that could very well be the case. But again, it's on the whole for Indian cricket, I was expecting Harbhajan to be back for the Australian tour, but the good performances by Ojha and Ashwin made sure that Harbhajan gets his form back in the domestic circuit before he can be considered for national selection.
Yeah, probably he needs a break from international cricket to be able to do well and come back.
Johnson, same thing. Is as we've described, and everyone's described him before, is more of a confidence player. So he does need those good 3-4 wicket spells or a 50 under his spell to make sure that because any aspect of his game that he does well, the other automatically picks up for him.
That's with every cricketer,
but more so for Johnson. It's more pronounced in his case, because as soon as you see him being hit around the park for a couple of boundaries, his shoulders drop. If he gets out on a zero, he lets that affect his bowling.
But I think it's good that Australia have moved on from Johnson.
They have a good replacement in the form of Mitchell Starc.
Yes.
For Johnson. So
yeah. He actually swings the ball.
And then, anyways, moving on to Jesse Ryder. Yeah, again another name which could have done much better throughout the year.
Huge potential.
Absolutely, I think he's one of the best all-rounders New Zealand has.
Yeah.
After Daniel Vettori, I think it's Jesse Ryder, but again, due to injuries, he's not bowled anymore. Batting has been affected. He hasn't scored any big ones. He just scores a quick fire 20-30, and that's it. If you are the mainstay of the batting along with one or two other senior players,
you have to perform.
You have to make sure you score big.
And he has the ability and he has the power to bat through the innings and play well. Another name, a team that I'll throw up is Bangladesh cricket team.
Well, they haven't lived up to the expectations since they've got their test status. I mean, initially it was tough to blame
even
them.
Even in ODIs also, they have capitulated against Pakistan recently.
Yeah.
Their actually World Cup campaign was also horrible, 51 all out against West Indies. A bad year for them. A very bad year for them.
Definitely, and again, it's the same case with them. They have some new talent coming in, but they have flashes of brilliance and no consistent performer except Shakib Al Hasan. That's one and only. I mean, he's the only one pulling the team through.
Yeah.
They do need someone else to step up and make sure that they provide able support.
Now let's move on to our players who have impressed, and I think this year, if you take out everything else, this year would be known for the year for the debutants. All the debutants in the last 2 months or even the last 6 months have done very, very well, starting off with, not all of them obviously, but quite a few of them, starting off with Praveen Kumar in England, then going on to Nathan Lyon, then going on to this crazy November month we had where Doug Bracewell, Ilyas Sunny, where players like
Vernon Philander,
Ashwin, Pattinson, Cummins, so many. And I got a stat. Overall, the debutants averaged 37 in their first match. This year, they averaged 28.5. which is a big difference.
Bowling averages,
Yeah.
in case people are wondering.
Yeah.
A great year for debutants, absolutely. On the other hand, even some of the stalwarts of the game have performed really well. Tendulkar has had a good year.
I think the best...
Whatever limited cricket he's played, sorry.
Yes, I think the best would be Dravid. What a golden year for the golden boy of actually Indian cricket.
Absolutely, and looking out of the subcontinent, I think a lot of other players have done well too. Michael Clarke has had a good year, especially since getting the captaincy. Cook again started off really well. Was a little off color during the India series, but he did have some major scores there too.
Yeah.
So, on the whole, a good year for batsmen and bowlers all combined. I mean, there's no distinction between the two. You couldn't say bat one or the ball one over this year.
Yeah. So that is the year roundup for us.
For you guys, actually.
It has been a very memorable year for us because we started this podcast this year, and it has been a great experience. Thank you to all of you who have given us time, your precious time to listen to our podcast. This has been a humble effort from me and Sarthak.
Great to have everyone's support. Actually, initially it was just a pet project that you and I got together and started, and we never knew that it would become anything. But it's good to see.
It still has ways to go, but
it has a long way to go right now. But it's come a long way from what we expected it to.
Yes, we didn't know how mics work, but now at least we can work around with the mics.
So it's been a humbling experience, as you put it. It's been a great experience working with you, and it's been a great year actually covering all the cricket, and we hope to go on for much more. Let's hope it's a great year cricketing wise.
Cricket, yes.
2012 before the world ends. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to us, and you too take care and continue listening to us and provide us with your feedback.
Yes, add us on Facebook at the Cricket Hotspot Podcast, and email us at questions@crickethotspot.com. We will entertain all the questions. Thank you very much again. Thank you for your time, and this is me, Parth, signing off.
This is me, Sarthak. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.